right, if you're just joining us this busy news night, this Friday night, Democrats just wrapping up their opening statements. Thank you. Thank you very much. Trump's defense team, they start their arguments tomorrow morning. Joining us now with more, Senate Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham. All right, so I read the comments. I don't know if I disagree or don't disagree. I can see both sides of this. And you said you don't want to call Hunter, and you don't want to call quid pro quo Joe, and zero experience Hunter paid millions.
Right,
now,
right.
And you said it's not the proper forum, but you do believe it should be investigated.
Right, exactly. So
Okay.
I think the best thing for the country is to end this trial next week, turn to issues that really matter to the American people, and let them pick the next president of the United States, the voters, and not the court of impeachment. I really do believe it's important to look at the Bidens regarding the Ukraine, because you can't live in a country where the Trumps get looked at and the Bidens give a pass. And why does it matter to the American people as to what happened? The Vice President of the United States was told to go to the Ukraine, straighten up the place, investigate corruption, tell them to turn around and do better. How can you send that message when your own son is working on the board of Burisma, the most corrupt gas company in the country, and receives $3 million and you don't know about it? I think that's bad government. I think it's bad foreign policy. And how could you not know that John Kerry's stepson was also on the board of Burisma? What it tells me that the Obama administration didn't do a very good job of looking for corruption if they couldn't find that Hunter Biden was on the board of Burisma.
All right. So what would then be the proper forum for that?
Oversight. So the Mueller report is thousands of pages long, hundreds of pages long. It took 2 years. So they tell us in the impeachment trial that this whole thing about the Bidens has been looked at, it's been debunked, it's phony, there's not a scintilla of evidence. And I asked them, who did the looking? They asked Dr. Hill, one of their witnesses, do you think Hunter Biden did anything wrong? No. Dr. Hill, did you even look? Where's the outrage of people on the ground in the Ukraine in 2014, 15, and 16 when they knew the vice president's son, Hunter Biden, was being paid by the most corrupt company in the Ukraine? Why didn't somebody call Washington and say this undercuts our message, it's bad government? So I want an oversight of the Bidens. I'd like it to be outside of politics, but if it has to be done by the Congress, so be it. But I'm not going to live in a country where the Trump family can be investigated for years, spent millions of dollars on legal fees, and the Democratic vice president's son takes $3 million from the most corrupt gas company in the Ukraine, and nobody gives a damn. We're not going to live in that country.
Let me ask you this. I agree with you. Okay, the Constitution, we've gone over this all week. Sole power of impeachment, that power lies in the House of Representatives. It's their power. Power of the Senate, sole power, try the case. Now, I agree with you. Now they impeached him. They now made their 24-hour case. There'll be a defense. There'll be 16 hours of questions. Why is there even a question that some Republican senators would even contemplate bringing in witnesses that they never, in the House with the sole power to impeach, ever bothered to bring in themselves? That would be their role. They should have done that.
This witness request is politically motivated. They could have called John Bolton in the House, but they chose not to. Why? They openly said that if we had gone to court or let Trump go to court to defend the offices of the presidency by exercising executive privilege like Nixon and Clinton, we'd have run out of time to impeach him before the election. They literally said the reason they did it in 48 days. And they said, you know, we gave Trump the same rights as Nixon and Clinton. The Nixon case went on for years. The Clinton case went on for almost 5 years. They literally impeached the President of the United States in 48 days from the time of authorization to passing the articles. How much due process can anybody get in 48 days? You couldn't get a contested parking ticket in 48 days. So I want the Senate to end this quickly. I want the Senate to tell the House, never do this again, never start an impeachment of the President of the United States, never not allowing them to call witnesses, cross-examine people, all the evidence is based on hearsay, and do it in 48 days. Don't ever do that again because it hurts the country.
So how do you think, what do you really believe? You're in the room. Apparently people are walking around, leaving the room,
I think it
playing
ends next
games,
week.
falling asleep.
Yeah. So here's what I really believe. I believe that our folks are going to say to the House, You say you got an overwhelming case. Let's judge based on what you gave us. You say there's not a scintilla of evidence that Hunter Biden and Joe Biden did anything wrong, that the only reason that Trump wanted to investigate the Bidens just for his personal interest. See if that withstands scrutiny. Here's what I think. I think people are ready to end this. We're going to vote based on the record assembled. When they say that the Trump administration betrayed the Ukraine, I would say it's quite the opposite. They did more than Biden. When they say that the only reason that President Trump wanted anybody to look at the Bidens is because of personal political gain, I would say good government demands that people look at the Bidens. Here's what I think will happen. The president will be stronger when this trial is over because people think it's unfair. And this is going to be a nightmare for Joe Biden on the campaign trail and eventually every other Democrat. Because when you get a lecture to by Bernie and Elizabeth how the government's rigged against you, they're going to have to answer the question, are you okay with the vice president's son getting $3 million from the most corrupt gas company in the Ukraine and us do nothing about it? Are you willing to let that go? And if you're willing to let that go, then that tells you a lot about how serious you are about making America different. This president, Donald Trump, had 2 years of investigation, $25 million, 19 lawyers look at every business deal he's ever done, and my Democratic colleagues are sweeping the Biden event under the rug. What's more corrupt, asking for Biden to be investigated or covering up the fact that the Bidens committed really bad things in the Ukraine?
All right, Senator, thank you. We appreciate your time tonight. It's been a busy week.